Okay, everybody, it's time for Stranding. Second impressions. I've had some more time to play the game, and I'm sounding a lot more dour than I actually am about the game because yesterday I had something spoiled, like a major plot point, like arguably like the most major plot point. I had it spoiled by some motherfucker, some dickless piece of shit. And it honestly, it kind of made me want to get off of 4chan forever, which is kind of funny that that's the thing that finally gets me to leave 4chan. But, I mean, I know a lot of you out there know how awful spoilers are, and this is no ordinary spoiler. This was a spoiler to the best game of all time. Yeah, that's basically where I'm at with Death Stranding at the moment. I can't believe what Kojima did with this. Once again, I'm not a Kojima drone. I was never the biggest fan. I always thought MGS had lame stories because I was dumb. Honestly, I'm gonna go back and rewatch. I'm gonna go back and rewatch Metal Gear Solid because I know now that there's tons of shit there that I missed because I mean I was young, I was a fucking teenager. I didn't know shit. Well, now that I'm like almost fucking 30, I was able to enjoy Death Stranding on a level that I know I wouldn't have been able to enjoy it if I was like 20. And I think that's a big part of this game, is that it's basically like a boomer game. It's a 30-year-old boomer game. There's so much shit. Like, I don't even know where to start, because this isn't really a review because I haven't finished the game. And the thing is, that goddamn spoiler hit me so hard. Like, you have no idea. But the thing is, this game is all about teaching you how to endure and persevere. And oddly enough, the fact that I had this spoiler and the fact that I'm having to deal with it emotionally, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, this spoiler. It really fucked me up. Not because, like, the spoiler itself. I'm not saying, like, oh, the spoiler is so crazy that I had to deal with it. No, I'm saying the fact that I now had a piece of this game spoiled for me. So now as I'm playing the game, it's different because I know a piece of information about the plot. And as a result, it taints and it paints your entire understanding of what you're doing. And it's horrible. It's horrible because up until that point, I had this absolutely pristine experience with this game. And then this motherfucker ruined it. He really did. He ruined it. He ruined the experience that I was having. When I was having an incredible experience. I think I'll be able to get over it. I do. This is a big deal. I mean, seriously, it's really fucking me up. I think I'll be able to get over it because here's the kind of crazy thing. As much as it does suck to have a piece of the story spoiled, because the story is great. The story is awesome. It's not about the dialogue. It's not about seeing crazy, interesting cinematics. It's about being told a story about a character and being told things about life as you're told the story. And the story primarily, really, is fleshed out as you're playing the game and watching this character go through what he's going through. But the thing is, even though I had a part of the story spoiled, which is a huge deal with a game like this, because it does have a very strong story element to it, which, like I said, saying that can be misleading because you're going to go in thinking it's got, like, Last of Us levels of cinematics and dialogue. It doesn't. But the story it's telling is still one of the best stories I've ever seen told, especially in video. So, this might sound like cope, but it's not that big of a deal because the game is just fun to play. That's the thing. Like I said, it's a testament to what I said yesterday about how this is kind of a purely gameplay-driven game. And it's not because the story, and this actually made me realize when I had this thing spoiled, it made me realize how big of a role the story and this character plays in your immersion and enjoyment of the game. It definitely does. I wouldn't say I've had my enjoyment ruined. I've definitely had it momentarily. This is just me talking about the spoiler. I was going to give like my impressions of the game. I'm just talking about, this is just me like journaling about the spoiler. It might have like ruined the game for me in a way. It might have like removed an element of it that I will no longer have, but it's just so much fun to play in and of itself. Like, it's the kind of game that you could replay after beating the game. You might not want to do it immediately, but it's the kind of game you could do that with. And the game is just so interesting to play. And like, the thing is, the spoiler that I had, it is a major spoiler, but it's like there's so much other shit I don't know. Like, even though this is like arguably one of the most major spoilers, it doesn't really spoil what I'm going to experience with the game. It just spoils a major plot point of one of the main characters. So it doesn't necessarily spoil the game. It just spoils one aspect of the story. And there's still a ton of stuff. This is total cope. This is just me coping. There's still tons of stuff in the game that in the story, like the plot, that I haven't seen yet. So there's tons of questions that I still have unanswered. And there's still tons of game left. And the thing is, when I say there's tons of game, I said in that first impressions, like, I wonder if like they're going to add anything to the game, if it's going to evolve as a game, or if it's just going to be the same, walking simulator. And basically, as far as I can tell so far, it's kind of a yes and no situation. The game does add more and more and more. And it hints, with some cinematics, it hints at certain things that I don't know if they're ever going to deliver on, or if they're just trolling the player with. But there might be some interesting environmental ideas going on, but I haven't really seen much yet. It's just been, barren Earth. But barren Earth is fucking awesome. It's still really good. And even if it's all barren Earth, I'm okay with it. But from a gameplay perspective, they're adding right now, I'm getting tons of shit. Vehicles, floating fucking delivery platforms, robot drones that just deliver things automatically for you. Tons of stuff is starting to be added onto the system that's just fleshing it out. You've got these fucking exoskeletons that let you run fast and just make it easier for you to carry heavy cargo through uneven terrain. It's just, the game is evolving to be something much different than what it started out as. And the thing is, you can still play the game. That's the beauty and brilliance of this game. Everything that it's adding to the system is optional. And that's, I think, one of the big parts of this game is it's got a very kind of optional difficulty thing, and it's kind of very meta with it. It's like joking, like anything to make your job easier, Sam, like, because we know that's what you want, right? You want an easier game, right? They're making fun of you because they're telling you that, like, it's not about being easy, it's about being fun, and oftentimes fun requires a challenge. And it kind of shows you how, as you get these things added onto the game, the exoskeleton, for example, the idle, rugged walking is less fun. However, it's a trade-off because it lets you get things done faster, which lets you do more stuff. So it's like you can choose. Do I want to use my exoskeleton? Well, I'll get there faster. I'll get to carry more shit there. I'll be able to chunk some things together, but the trip might be a little bit more boring. And you get to deal with that trade-off. Do you want that or not? And if you want, you can take it off and just hoof it yourself, and experience the starting game. You can experience the very first level of challenge if you want, and then as you like go up the layers of like complexity, there's like new kinds of challenges. It's not that it's boring necessarily. It can be a little bit like less intense, but it's not necessarily boring because you're doing other things now. Once you've got the exoskeleton and you're running the roads and you're going really fast, you're thinking about plotting out a route. You're thinking about doing multiple things instead of like, okay, I got to go to A to B and just deliver this and then take a breather. Now it's like, okay, I can do A, B, C, D, E, and I got to do them all in a certain order to make it as efficient as possible. And even if you're doing the kind of mech shit where you're running around like crazy on the roads, you'll still have to deal with some rugged walking, some rough terrain. It's not going to be all that. And like I said, you don't even have to use the mech shit. The way the game is developed and designed, it's around kind of... I guess modular play is kind of an idea that I'm getting from this game. The way the suits of the guy, you can attach cargo to the suit to create balancing and stuff, and it creates this kind of Lego mech vibe where you feel like you're kind of snapping your suit together with pieces of cargo, and it actually affects the way your suit works and runs and operates and the weight and stuff. And I think that modular idea might translate to the game mechanics themselves and the systems that it gives you, because like the bikes you can use, the motorcycles you can use, the vehicles you can use, the various tools that they give you are all optional. You know, you don't have to use bridges, you don't have to use ladders, you don't have to use anything. You can get everywhere you need pretty much just on foot with nothing. But all of these little things, they just say, hey, these are tools that you can use. I heard this game called Stalker combined with Breath of the Wild. I never played Stalker. I could never get it to run. But I could definitely see that comparison. Breath of the Wild, absolutely. Stalker, based on what I know of Stalker, yeah, that seems like a fair comparison. It's a very resource, survivally oriented, post-apocalypse stealth game, you know? And it's an open world, and it's got like really long-range, large-scale ideas going with it. So it's Breath of the Wild in that sense. I would say it's the thinking man's Breath of the Wild, honestly. I would say Breath of the Wild is checkers, and Death Stranding is chess. That's what I would say. Death Stranding is the Dark Souls to Breath of the Wild's Dragon's Dogma. That's what I would say. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's way better than Breath of the Wild. Way better than Breath of the Wild. It's such a better game. It's better than Red Dead Redemption 2. It's better than every game. Think of a game, even if I haven't played it, odds are Death Stranding's probably better. I mean, I haven't played it, but I mean, I can't imagine that the game that you're going to tell me is as original, as interesting, or as fun as this. That's the thing. It's not just original and interesting and weird. That's there, and that adds like a huge layer. I'm still fucked up about that spoiler. God, this sucks. But anyway, it's not just about being interesting or weird, although that does add a layer of mystery and mystique and immersion to the game. But it's also a fucking fun game. It's fun. You gotta play it, dude. You gotta play it. It's all about looking ridiculous, dealing with it, and figuring out how to make it from A to B with what you're given. And once you understand that and you deal with it, it's a full game. It looks ridiculous. It's a full game. It's a deep game. And it starts off originally looking retarded to filter out, the normies. To filter out the people who can't handle looking a little weird and awkward at first. Because it's basically, the game is very much a metaphor for life. There's a lot of Randian stuff in here, and I don't know if it's Kojima or the writer or if it's just me, but there's tons of stuff in here. I will go on a full story and philosophy analysis at some point once I've beaten the game. But, oh yeah, the game is very metaphorical about like life, and I think the beginning stages where it's very weird and awkward is meant to kind of mimic the early stages of life where you're learning how to walk, and it's also meant to mimic just the early stages of learning any skill, which is always weird and awkward and looks stupid and it's dumb and you're not sure if you want to continue, but there's something interesting here. And then once you get over that hump, it opens up to you and it's like, oh, this is why I was learning this skill. That's what this game is doing, I think. And it sounds like sounds like cope. I know, oh, he's just trying to rationalize a bad game. All you have to do is play it and you'll see that I'm not full of shit. All you're basing this off of, if you haven't played it, are video clips of other people playing it. So you have no idea what you're talking about. You really don't. And I think it was made deliberately to look ridiculous, to filter people out, because that's not what it's about. It's not about looking cool. You know what I mean? It's not about looking cool. It's about being fun to play, right? I mean, what difference does it make if you look like a retard playing a video game? Like, what are you, a fucking jock that you care about what, you know what I mean? Is it fun? Well, then that's all I really give a shit about. You know what I mean? I mean, within reason. Obviously, if the game was all about, like, murdering and raping children or something, it doesn't matter how, like, deep the mechanics of the game you make, it's not going to be very fun to play. But you know what I'm saying? Within reason, you can look like an absolute retard and still have a lot of fun doing it. And that's a big part of this game, too. It's about not caring what other people think. I mean, this game is so deep. There are so many layers to this game, philosophically and intellectually. And the game itself was made by someone with that level of genius. The game itself, the mechanics itself, it's a total inversion of the open world genre. Everything about it is meant to confuse and downright bully people who are used to the open world genre. Menu things, things like an example. When you get off your bike, if you press the buttons that you use to balance yourself while you're right next to your bike, you'll end up picking up pieces of cargo off your bike because the triggers that you use your arms. So if your arms are ever like context relevant, right? Context relevance, you'll pick things up with it if you're near pick-upable cargo. But you also use the triggers to balance yourself and keep yourself steady. Well, every time you get off your bike, you don't need to balance yourself. You're already fully balanced. But it's like a habit that when you get off your bike, you want to kind of just balance yourself, but you don't have to. So what happens is you end up tons of times picking up cargo off your bike and having to put it back down again. And what does that do? It teaches you to not do that. It teaches you to not balance when you get off your bike. So that like 2 or 3 times after you do it, the 4th time you go, okay, we're not going to do the balance thing this time. And you realize, oh, I don't have to balance myself when I get off my bike. I'm fine. And everything about this game is like that, where things that will seem clunky and stupid are done on purpose. They're done on purpose to make you stop and think and be patient and look at what you're doing, read the menus, read the tooltips, slow it down. This game is all about slowing it down, having patience, looking, focusing on what you're doing, and figuring out the mistakes that you're making. And if you come in trying to play it like an open world game that you've played before, you will. What it's trying to do, and this is what I think it's trying to do, is it's trying to break people of bad habits that have been ingrained in them through years of playing games like World of Warcraft and just mindless, stupid open world games. This game is trying to break people of those bad habits and bring them up to another level. It seems like it's trying to make dumb Western gamers more intelligent. That's what it seems like it's trying to do. It's kind of like the Japanese take on the open world game. I think after playing this game, I will enjoy Nier Automata a lot more than I did when I first played it. I got filtered by that game pretty hard. But I think after playing this game, I'm going to enjoy Sekiro a lot more. I'm going to be able to actually get past Snake Eyes. I think I'll enjoy Nioh more. I think I'll just generally enjoy Japanese games more. And I think that might have been... I mean, I've always enjoyed Japanese games, but I've never really enjoyed the hardcore Japanese games, the Devil May Cries and stuff. I like Resident Evil. That's my speed of Japanese game. I love those games. RPGs. But the fast-paced, intense stuff, I was never really into. But after playing this game, I feel like I could play those games. Really? That sounds weird. It's a walking simulator where you're walking 10 miles an hour and it feels like it's prepared you for like Devil May Cry 5? Yeah, that's what this game is. That's what this game is. That's how deep it is, and that's how much it asks of a dumb Western open world gamer. It violates all of the rules that have been established by Western games. And I'm almost certain it does this consciously, on purpose, to break us of bad habits and to teach us how to slow down and think. Because there are 2 types of gamers. There are the gamers who want to use games as drugs to just bleed away their time because they're fucking miserable, which is a big part of this game's philosophy, story, and themes. Or you can use games as a tool to learn a system and a skill, and then you can learn skills by learning the system and mastering the system that you can apply to other areas of life. I think that's what this game is about. It's the anti-open world game. It's like the Last Jedi in that it inverts expectations or subverts expectations, but in a good way, for good purposes, for constructive purposes, not nihilistic purposes. It's trying to, despite the seeming nihilism of the plot, and the dreariness and misery and altruism of the story, there's so much good here. There's so much moral here. There's so much right here. It's all about teaching people how to think and use their minds to master the world around them and figure out how to apply that to broader aspects of life. You know, how to figure out how to master a narrow system that teaches you very important skills: patience, focus, slowing down, thinking, planning, not being hasty. Everything about this game is about not being hasty. Even when you start upgrading and you start getting more and more equipment that makes the game quote unquote easier, you still have to be mindful of what you're doing. You can't just like mindlessly run from A to B, because you will fuck up. And it's the best game ever made, and I don't care. I don't care that people who haven't played it don't know. If you're the kind of person that needs to be sanctioned to play a game, Famitsu gave it a 40 out of 40. Now, they don't do that for a lot of games. I think they do that for Breath of the Wild. I disagree with them on that. But hey, Famitsu gave it a 40 out of 40. That's a pretty big deal. Look up the list of games they've given 40 out of 40. It's not a large list, and they're all pretty good games. Like, as much as I shit on Breath of the Wild, it's a good game. It is checkers, and checkers is a decent game. But Death Stranding is chess. Death Stranding is the thinking man's Breath of the Wild. And it's my favorite game ever made. And it's weird. And I'm still fucked up about that spoiler. Why do people spoil things? I'll tell you why. Because they're Higgs. They're the chaos element, right? They just want to make shit awful. This game is all about statism. This game is all about how you need government. Because if you don't have government, people like Higgs will just make the world a terrible place. It's a very pro-government, anti-anarchy message. So far, the story might develop in a weird way, but so far that's the distinct message I get. But it's a great fucking game. It's the best game ever made. It's the most Japanese game ever made. It's set in America, right? It's the most Japanese game you will ever play. You will ever play. It feels like you're playing a science fiction, a giant Japanese science fiction from the 80s. Or maybe the early 90s. Early 90s Japanese science fiction, maybe late 80s. I mean, does that not sound perfect? Late 80s, early 90s Japanese sci-fi? That's what this game is. With 2019 levels of technology. It's the best game fucking ever made. I'm telling you, bro. It's the best game ever made. You gotta play it. Just stay off of 4chan. Stay off of 4chins. Those motherfuckers. Stay off of the internet generally. Dude, as much as it fucked me up, it's taught me a lesson. Everything about this game is about teaching lessons. Like, I'm really thinking about filtering what goes into my mind now. Like, why let your mind be open to the fucking world like that? Like, that doesn't mean... It's kind of the opposite of the message of the game, which is to connect with people, but... Also, Hideo mentioned that a message of the game was teaching us how the way we're connected now with the internet, it might not be the healthiest way to be connected to other people. It's very isolating, being connected to other people via technology. And maybe that's relates to this. It's like having your brain just open to the internet, open to the world, so to speak. You're communizing your mind, right? You're egalitarianizing your mind. So your mind goes to shit. You get all kinds of trash thrown in there. You end up going down some bad roads. And you get the best game of all time spoiled. You get the story of the best game of all time spoiled by some dickless piece of fucking trash on the asshole of the internet. So everything about this game is amazing. I can't think of a single bad aspect. Honestly, I can't think of a single flaw. Because everything that you would think is a flaw is probably done on purpose. Everything like that's a perfect example. That getting off your bike and picking up cargo thing. That's a good example of the kind of thing that happens in Red Dead 2, where the same button to get on and off your horse is the button that you use to choke pedestrians. Now that's stupid, because a game like Red Dead is not at all the kind of game that asks you to like slow down and survey, because there's nothing going on. It's a very slow game, but there's nothing going on. There's nothing happening. It's a very slow game, but boring as fuck. So it's not the kind of game where you're going to be thinking, okay, I'm going to get off my horse now, or I'm going to get on my horse, and I'm going to end up killing this or throttling this lady walking next to me. It's not the kind of game that would make you think that. But Death Stranding is, everything about the game is designed that way. when everything about the game is designed that way, then you know it's not a mistake. It's a design philosophy. It's done for a reason, and it's done to force you to abandon your prior habits of open world gaming, slow down, learn what the system tells you. That's the thing. Everything about the system is learnable. So all of these things, like a great example of this kind of shit is, this has happened to me multiple times, where I'll spend like 30 minutes hoofing it out to or maybe like 15 minutes, hoofing it out to some place to do a delivery, only to realize I don't fucking have the thing on my back. Because the way the game is set up is it doesn't really, if you like take a rest in your private room, you might not have, it forces you to, every time you go out to do a delivery, you have to check to make sure that you have the stuff on your back. Because the way the game is set up, and it doesn't always tell you how it works, and it does that on purpose. It purposefully doesn't tell you all the time when your cargo is put in certain private lockers that you use. It just it does it the same way every time whenever you use this particular terminal in this particular way to do this particular action. Your cargo will go into a particular safe box, and it does the same thing every time. So you have to learn that. But it doesn't necessarily tell you it will do that, or maybe it does. It might tell you that once when it first happens, but then it never tells you again. So you forget about it. So situations like this happen, where you walk out to a fucking place for like 20 minutes, only to realize you have to turn all the way around and go all the way back and pick it up because you didn't check your fucking cargo. You didn't check your fucking bag, right? It's teaching you the skills of being a delivery man. It's teaching you the skills. And it's doing it in a genius, subtle way that will filter out midwits. People are like, I know how to develop games. You shouldn't have these two things conflict. These go against proper game design. And it's like, no, it's a work of art. It's a work of art. It's an art game. Okay? It's an art game. All of that stuff is there for a purpose. And once you understand that, once you know how to play Death Stranding, once you're not a filtered little bitch, it opens up. And it's amazing. It's an incredible game. It's the best game ever made. And I don't give a shit what anyone thinks of me for saying that. It's truly what I believe. I can't think of a single game, even World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is this hollow, pale imitation of Death Stranding is the answer. It's the reaction to World of Warcraft. It's really what it is. And as a result, it's very much like Breath of the Wild. I would call it like MGS5 / Breath of the Wild / that's the thing, it's hard to compare it to other games. Breath of the Wild is something that you can compare it to in terms of its scope and the kind of freedom and versatility it gives you. It's very Breath of the Wild in that sense. But it's also very original. It's Death Stranding. You know, other games in the future will be compared to Death Stranding. So when Kojima said, I'm creating my own genre, he wasn't totally full of shit. Yeah, it's an open world game, sure. And it very heavily borrows open world tropes. Like it builds off of what American Western open world games did. But like I said, it inverts or subverts a ton of that formula and puts a very distinctly Japanese and a very distinctly cerebral spin on the open world game. And as a result, because I love open world games, but I'm also smart and I realize that open world games are kind of a drug, this is the perfect game because it's like an open world game, but it really does demand a lot of you as a player and as a thinker. And it seems to tell a really cool, interesting, and potentially good message about life. So, remains to be seen. I'm going to finish the game. Once I finish the game, probably this weekend, I'll do a full analysis of the story and of the game. But I mean, I've pretty much said most of the stuff. I mean, depending on how the game develops, the way the game has been going, it's very possible that over the next 30 hours, it's going to turn into something crazy. And there might be a ton of new stuff, content added, because that's what's been happening so far. I've been like, okay, is this game this the whole time? Or does it kind of build and build and build and kind of blossom into a much more complex, interesting thing? Because here's the thing, even the basic level gameplay is still really interesting, But it's not it's not interesting enough to carry a whole game. So it's got to do something with this basic stuff that you've got. It's got to add to it. So far, it's doing it. It's adding a lot. It's adding a lot of layers to it that is turning it into a different kind of game, where it's the similar game and you can still do the same stuff that you were doing in the beginning, but the main gameplay loop is evolving and transforming into something different, much faster, arguably much less original, and much more kind of rote, and I think that's on purpose. that's part of it. It's to show you that being easy and upgrades and all the shit that we think are, easy. What do they call it? Quality of life improvements. The things that ruined WoW, for example. This game shows you that quality of life improvements don't necessarily make for a fun video game. And the kind of people who clamor for quality of life improvements are the kind of people who are Death Stranding. They're the kind of people who are beaching themselves like whales in front of their computer screens just waiting to die. And they don't want to think, and they don't want to master a system. They just want to be shown pretty pictures and be lulled into death. And that's how deep this fucking game is it's literally saying that shit. And it's saying that shit through the story in a very abstract way, through like the cinematics and the writing, but primarily through the game. If you're a hardcore gamer and you know games on like an intellectual level and you analyze games, this game tells you a story as you play it from a mechanical perspective. And then the theme and the aesthetics and the cinematics and the dialogue kind of support that. So most people probably won't get that. They'll just get the kind of basic story, and they'll get a really fun, engaging, bafflingly so, because it looks so ridiculous, game that turns into something different and interesting. And for those of us who can meet Kojima halfway, it's an incredible commentary on video games. It's an incredible commentary on Americans. It's an incredible commentary on history. It's an incredible commentary on business. It's so left-wing. It's all about automation. I got to read, when I do the full story analysis, I will first have read all of the emails and all of the notes, because I was like eyeballing a couple of them last night, and there definitely seems to be like a left-wing, not even necessarily left-wing, it's kind of this new hybrid thing. Kojima might be, ironically, like Yang Gang. I think Kojima, it's all about, not all about, but automation is a very heavy theme throughout the kind of the notes and the subtext and stuff. So there might be a kind of a, neo-fascist Yang Gang. I mean, there is a neo-fascist vibe to this. It's all about coming together. It's all about coming together, and the terrorists are decentralized, leaderless. And it seems to be kind of a fashy game, but it's the best game ever made. Either way, but anyway, just to give you an idea of how, before you play this game, the level of irony that the game is playing on, the level of shit posting that you have to kind of understand to appreciate this game fully. There are these enemies in the game called mules, and they're like bandits, right? They're like raiders. And the combat in this game is terrible. And it's terrible on purpose. It's the worst combat in any game ever. You just press the square button a bunch to punch guys until they go down. And then they might slowly hit you and knock off your cargo, but, you might get knocked out if you're totally stupid, but it's really not hard. And that's on purpose. It's on purpose. This game is not meant to be about violence and killing, and the combat is deliberately shit to dissuade you from using it. That's not even the joke. That is an example of the irony that the game is operating on, but this really hammers it home. As you're running out towards one of their bases, one of the main characters named Die Hardman, another example of people are actually on the internet complaining about the fact that one of the characters is named Die Hardman. Like Kojima doesn't realize how stupid that sounds. It's a joke. He's on the comms, and he's telling you the mules they're out there, and it's funny because the combat is so bad, and they don't pose a threat at all. They will not attack you unless you engage them. They'll just chase you down, but you can just run away from them very easily. They're not a threat at all. On purpose, they're not a threat at all. But the way that Die Hardman says the line, he goes, "If they find you, if they catch you," he's trying to make the player think it's this terrifying, horrible, scary enemy, and then you go out and it's just this like total push over that's done on purpose. That's done on purpose. And some people won't get the joke, and they'll just go, this is terrible. I mean, he made it sound like they were going to be so scary. Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Because that's what every game, that's what all the open world games do, is they hype up their story, like Destiny, right? They hype up their enemy as being this horrible, evil guy, and then you go out and fight him and it's nothing. It's bullshit. It's a pushover waste of your time, and you got duped into wasting your time on a game like Destiny or whatever by, fancy dialogue. It's a commentary on that. So and I know it might sound like I'm grasping at straws here. I'm not. I am not. Play the game. You will see what I'm talking about. Everything about it, the menus, the mechanics, it's all deliberately obtuse to the point where it's almost bullying the player. It's done on purpose. There's a reason this game got a 40 out of 40 from Famitsu. If you don't trust me, trust them. That's all I'm saying. All right. I'm done. Thank you for listening. I will read all those notes, all those emails. I'll finish the game. I'll do a full analysis on the full game, on see how it develops, and on the full story and the ideas and the themes and all that. So until then, thanks for listening. And until then is what they say, right?